So we're going to be tying the foam back shrimp. Again, just literally everything eats a shrimp, but little foam back so it always lands upright in the water. A couple of beads, you can adjust the belly weight to the depth that you want. Lightest I've gone is a 4mm brass dumbbell, sitting fairly centrally, so just to the other side of this orange bead, and you'll get a very slow slink, a very slow sink down. Not many materials, a couple of different EP fibers, obviously my foam shells, which you can either buy pre-cut by myself, or you can cut them out yourself out of a piece of 2mm foam. A couple of strands of flash for antennas. You can add extra flash into the EP if you want, and then I've got some zebra legs that are also available on my website. Weight wise, as I said, tungsten dumbbells. The hook I'm going to use is an SL12 size 2, and I'm using the smaller foam for the back of the smaller shrimp cell foams, shrimp foam shells on this fly. Just to line up this a bit better. There we go. So as I said earlier, the hook wise is an SL12 size 2. You can use Arex, Gamakatsu, whichever hook you want. Generally speaking, I'd use a lot of Arexes, but these ones are being used for triggers. So hook wise, SL12 size 2 is quite a good hook. Now, being foam, obviously they do get chewed up quite badly, so just to give you the heads up, toothy fish, the foam doesn't last as long as a standard EP fly, but being that it's a foam back, it will always land hook point up. First off, I'm using a dark tan EP fiber, short little pinch of it, so not too much, just doing a couple of wraps there to lock it in, and then I'm going to fold back on itself, and then just before I tighten it, I'm just going to squish it down a touch, and then a couple of locking wraps there, keep it all in place. Again, you can tie this a lot longer if you want, but it generally gets trimmed back nice and short, so you don't need to worry too much about trimming it or pre-tapering it. You can tie it in flat. Then we're going to put a small bunch of orange right on top of that one. So I should say the first bunch is just around the bend of the hook. Second bunch will pretty much be sitting, second bunch will be sitting pretty much on top of it, on top of the hook shank. Just trim that off at an angle. Need to sharpen those scissors one of these days. A couple of locking wraps. So this is almost your mouthpieces done. And then last one will be, I think this is like a ivory off-white. Not 100% sure what the color is. Again, you don't need huge amounts, just small little pinches. A little bit goes a long way with this fiber. Again, a couple of wraps to tie it down and tie it back on itself, and then just trim off the excess. Just push it down, make sure it's all the way around, and then I'm just gonna take out some of the tangles with my trusty toothbrush. Tie it down nice and tight. Now I'm going to flip it over, put in a couple of brown eyes. Again, you can change up the colors of this fly as well. And tie in both at the same time. And what I tend to do is I fold them back, stick them on top of the hook to make sure they're in the right spot and they're the right length, because you don't want cockeyed eyes. And then I'm just gonna turn it on its side. Normally, then I'm gonna split them with a thread wrap. Sorry, hands in the way there. So getting it in between the eye and just forces them open a bit. And you just adjust them as you need. And I'm going to trim off that excess there. And again, a little bit of super glue to lock those eyes in place. Next up, I'm going to use a little bit more of this same bunch of tan that I cut off, or light tan, ivory-ish color that I cut off earlier. Oh, actually, I lie. First, I'm going to tie on my legs. Now, I tend to tie in one side, just flat against the shank, and then I use my vise to hold the other side, and tie them in as a, so you can't quite see there. Maybe if I move the camera just a touch. There we go. So as you can see, wrap them around the base of my vise. You can use material springs, etc. But this is what I do. Now, just before I go any further, I'm just going to add the angle to this. So I'm just taking my scissors, obviously make sure that your legs are out of the way and your eyes, because you don't want to be trimming them off. And that just sets the angle for later on, saves a bit of extra trimming work when the scissors may be, or the legs may be in the way. Right. So just push this 180 degrees around the shank. So it's all across the bottom, none on the top. Fold it back on itself. And then trim off the excess. Right, now we're going to start putting in the foam shells. So to start off with, foam shells have the, oh Jesus, what's the name of it? Basically it'll be the head of the prawn. If you're eating it, you'd pull this part off and bin it. Some people will suck the bits out, but I never liked doing that because I thought it was disgusting. But some folks do. Now, it's a two-piece. So I've just put 2 loose wraps, and then I'm going to take a small bit of black flash. I'm just going to V-tie it, one on either side of, can you see that? So you can see it's on the top, and I'm going to just put a drop of glue just on the tip there, and I'm going to pull these in. So just give it a second just to dry there so that they stay in that central position. And then I'm just going to trim them off. Once that's done, to finish building the head, I'm just going to fold that over and pop that in the right spot. But before I do that, I'm just going to add a drop of super glue so that it all locks in place. Now, I'm going to take this and just fold the foam underneath and reattach the hook into the vise. Now the hook's going to put a bit of pressure on that foam, so it's going to lock itself in quite nicely. Now, next up, another small bunch of the ivory off-whitish EP. I'll try and find the color there at some stage. Put it in the description. And again, just a small bunch, 180 degrees on the hook shank. Another couple of wraps just to lock it in. Trim off your excess. At the stage you can brush it out a bit, make sure it's kind of in and around the 180 degrees. And then we're going to take a little foam skeleton, or backbone shall we say, and I'm just going to 4 segments, largest to smallest, and we're going to trim off the first one just so that there's a little tie-in point. And you see I've trimmed that off just at the tip where it joins, and I'm going to use that as a sort of a measurement as such. So lay it down. Again, this foam is light foam, so you don't want to tie it down too tight, because if you do, it'll rip straight through the foam. And I'm just going to angle that little piece, that little tie-in tag a touch there. Just shift it down off that bump, but that's all right. Still in the right place. Then 2 wraps, drop a glue on this guy. Not too much glue, because otherwise you'll stick your finger to it. Then you're just going to push it, line up the center, like so, and then squeeze it down on the sides so that the glue bonds onto the thread, leaves it all in one place. Bring your thread forward. Now at this stage, you're going to want to tie in a small piece of mono. So this is 20-pound hard mono, and this will also become the Doofenmadab, the weed guard. I'm just going to lay it on there. Just tie it in nice and tight, and don't worry that it's all sticking up. It'll stay out of the way, and when you trim it, you'll just pull it out to one side. Now next up will be a little more ivory, and then we're going to repeat the foam another 3 times, each time moving it slightly more towards the eye. There we go, push it down, make sure it's all the way around. Couple of wraps, and then we're going to take number 3 again, just laying it down so that the point is, whoops, shifted the lock there, so the point is just on the other one. Trim it off at an angle. Again, I'm only using 2 loose wraps, not pulling on tight, because if you pull too tight on foam, thread will cut right through. And again, pushing down so it lines up the center, and then pushing down so that the glue bonds on the sides. I'm just going to tighten this hook there. There we go. Another small piece should be just enough to finish this fly. Actually, hold on. Glue didn't bond there. 1 second. There we go. Done. Another small piece. And again, this is the ivory stroke creamy off-whitey fibers. Fold it back on itself, get all the loose strands, push it out. Second to last little one. I normally get a few guys that'll say that there's no gap there, but this foam is super soft. There is no issues with hookups. So don't worry about that. Like I said, it is foam, so it will get chewed. A little bit of glue there. Fold it back, push it down. There we go. Gonna need another little piece of this. Which doesn't matter because I'll be tying another one shortly. Got a bit of black fur in there. Drop of glue. And the last piece, it's getting a bit smaller. So this is the smaller shell that I do. So it is a little dinky for my fingers, but it works. And that's a finer little shell. So you go from those, whoops, to a nice shrimp back. Like I said, you can cut out little pieces by yourself out of foam if you want. You don't have to go for mine, but might just make it a bit easier, a bit more uniform. Last bit of EP to cover up the belly there. Like I said, you can variegate this. You can do loads and loads with this. So I'm just going to tie it off. Tying it off there just because I'm going to be trimming it. I don't want to be cutting my thread. So like I said, you can variegate all the colors on these. You can pre-color the foam in before you tie it in, alternating darknesses, etc. You can color it in black, you can purple. I know the redfish guys like these. Bonefish smoke them. So plenty of color options out there. Do whatever takes your fancy, really. Now, just trimming the belly, neatening it up. Pull this out of the way. Just trim away some excess. There we go. And then we're going to take our thread. Oh, actually, before I do that, I'm just going to singe it. Let's just ties off any loose pieces you miss, melts them down. There we go. Just going to neaten up there. Right. Ow. Stab myself with my scissors. Put your thread back on. Now we're going to take an orange 4mm tungsten and then a 4mm brass. Thread it on your mono. Whoops. Push it through the eye of the hook. There we go. Wrap it down. Just pull on the mono a bit more. Make it nice and tight. And then lock down that weed guard by folding it back on itself, wrapping the thread over. A couple of locking wraps behind the mono weed guard, and then you can tie it off. So trim off the excess, and then we're just going to color that white thread. There we go. Last but not least, well, after I've done this, add a bit of super glue to that thread, but this is just singeing the edge of the foam with a cautery tool. You can heat a bodkin. Just be careful that you don't melt the weed guard, because that won't be very good. Now I'm just going to pop it out of the vise. There's your little loop of legs. Just pull the flash out the way. Trim them a bit shorter. And now that it's out of the vise, just going to neaten up these mouth parts. And there you have it. It's pretty much done, other than a bit more melting install. And that is your foam back shrimp. Whoops. Now, I originally got this idea from Darren Jackson, which is just wicked. But yeah, check out his tying. He may be guiding next year as well for all you guys in the UK looking to catch mullet and bass. But yeah, that's your foam back shrimp, inspired by Darren Jackson. Obviously, you can size it up or size it down as you need and color it up. But yeah, that's it. You could also flip everything upside down and have it as a gurgler or a sliding shrimp through the surface if you want as well. But that's your foam back shrimp. Thanks for watching.